The Final Fantasy VII Remake is way bigger than you might think, and we will actually have way more freedom and also things to do than in the original. Square Enix invited me to an event in Paris, so I could go hands-on with a new part of the game, namely Chapter 2, a part of Chapter 7, and also the FF7 boss fight. That is later on. And yes, the game plays and looks really good, but I was especially curious about the new things that they added to this remake, the new features. And I actually learned a ton about that, thanks to an interview with Naoki Hamaguchi, the co-director on the game. He even said that the volume of content in this release, so the first part of this Final Fantasy VII Remake, is maybe even more than we see in other numbered Final Fantasy games. So that's pretty huge. I want to share everything I learned in this video. A like would be very nice, and let's go. There is, by the way, now a demo available of the game in the PlayStation Store, so totally check it out for yourself. Final Fantasy VII is a story-focused game. You mostly play Cloud, but in battles also have control over 2 other party members. And with your group, you want to stop this mega corporation that is harvesting energy from the planet, so basically destroying it. And in the first mission of the remake, just like in the original, you go and blow up one of their reactors. So you are immediately into the action, and man, the combat feels great. You really feel the impact of Cloud's Buster Sword and actually have 2 different combat options that change the gameplay up quite a lot. So you got the regular operator mode that is way more balanced and has its own combo. Holding square, by the way, will give you this heavy attack, but there's also a Punisher mode that makes you way slower. You can luckily still roll, because walking is not really an option, but when you have the enemy in range, then you can do some insanely powerful attacks that deal a ton of damage. Also interesting is how the guard is different in the 2 different modes. So in the operator mode, you can hold your blade and then incoming bullets deal reduced damage. And in the Punisher mode, you are not protected against range attacks, but can instead unleash a powerful counter when you guard a melee attack at the right time. Combine this with the many abilities and spells that you unlock as you go, and there will also be new weapons to find that do not only have a different look, like we see Cloud use a spiked baseball bat here, for example. Now these weapons also behave slightly different and have different abilities linked to them, so you will expand your combat options in that way too. So while there is a classic mode that should be more true to the original combat, I sadly did not try this out and could not capture it, but I will likely play with the new combat system anyways. I just love how they made the fights more action focused while maintaining the strategic parts. Like, it's crucial to switch between the party members when it makes sense during the fight. Like Barret, for example, can easily take out ranged targets since he's a ranged character himself too. He got regular attacks, but also the overcharge that when ready can easily destroy the many turrets that will be shooting at you. He also has many powerful abilities, and enemies are sometimes weak against spells too, like the Thunder from Barret, so then you want to switch to him as well to use the ability and then to stagger the enemy, because when the enemy is staggered, you deal increased damage for a short period of time. So already in the first part of the game, you will have to do strategies and have to, for example, target different parts of the boss to nuke their shield. And I really like how the Scorpion fight, so the first boss battle in the game, felt similar to the original. We had to, for example, block his incoming laser, but there was also way more stuff going on and it was super cinematic. And Square Enix really wanted to focus on these boss battles even more to really have them stand out, and from what I've seen, they totally turned out great. The only thing that I would have loved to see better is the AI of your teammates, because sometimes they do not do the obvious block or just do not move away when the boss is clearly doing an attack. So it will be smart to take care of them when needed as well. So as you continue through the story, there will be new party members that you can control and also new things that you can use during combat, like against the FF7 boss fight that I think was in chapter 10 if I'm not mistaken. Like here we see Aerith use the Ifrit summon, so you get this fire elemental helping you in battle, and there will be way more of these summons as was already teased in the trailers and on social media as well. So while the first chapter is pretty linear, you do have your occasional chest though and breakable objects that hide some valuable items and that you have to look for in the level. Still though, it's pretty easy to find though, but it really starts to open up more in chapter 2, where you walk down the streets of Midgar. That looks beautiful, by the way, and already shows you why they wanted to flesh out this area more in this remake. So while the area was still not incredibly big, there were some side streets that you did not have to go to for the main story, but that did include some enemies and special items that you would otherwise have missed. And while I could not play chapter 3, we do know that it opens up even more in that chapter. Like the official Final Fantasy VII Remake account on Twitter namely shared photos and info about mercenary quest for Chapter 3 Home Sweet Slum. So these are side missions that you can do when in between main story objectives. So in Chapter 3 you reach the bar from Tifa in the Sector 7 slum, and then you have some time for yourself to do these special mercenary missions, like the rat problem. And don't worry, this should not be just a rat fetch quest where we have to kill an X amount of rats and then get a reward. No, the co-director assured me that there will be story elements to these quests as well that tell you why the rats are there, who the person is who is in trouble, and why Tifa has to go and help them out. There's also a screenshot where we see Cloud and Tifa fight the enemies to help with the problem. And overall, these missions should give more background to Midgar and the people that live there. But interesting enough is that these missions will also have some sort of impact on the main story. So again, they are optional, you do not have to do these mercenary missions, but if you choose to do some of them, then they can have an influence on how the story develops. Naoki wanted to keep many details a secret, so I don't really know much about the actual impact that it will have, but it's nice to know that they really thought about these missions and that they add more depth than meets the eye at first. Also good to note is that you can return to these quest givers later on in the story if you did not do all the missions the first time around. And we also see a mission for Chadley, and he is a new character in this remake. He's a materia researcher that we will meet multiple times as we progress through the game. So while he will not travel with Cloud and his party, he will show up in the multiple settlements that we visit as well. And the idea is that you can help him with his research. Like the one mission they shared has us assess 2 enemy types, and with this assess ability you can see the enemy weaknesses, and by knowing this you can of course easily stagger them, so deal more damage, and you can also for example see how much XP you get from the enemy. So if you assess 2 enemy types, then you get a new materia from Chadley, so it's just another side activity that you can choose to do for extra upgrades. But once again, Square Enix assured me that Chadley is more than just a gameplay function. By interacting with him, we should namely learn more about his background. He's for example part of the Shinra company that you are fighting against, and we should also learn why he's doing this type of research, why he wants to know more about the creatures in the Final Fantasy VII universe. So the main story is still here in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and if you just want to follow that, then that is an option too. This first part will be till the escape of Midgar, which is not that far in the original actually, but this part should now be way more fleshed out in the remake. And again, if you want to learn more about Midgar, then you can do that in this remake via the new side missions. And again, you also have the Chadley missions, and there should also be minigames like darts or a squad minigame that they showed at the Tokyo Game Show last year. And again, as mentioned before, they really compare the amount of content in this release to other numbered Final Fantasy games. So we should totally expect some endgame content too, as we saw in the other Final Fantasy titles as well. Like maybe bosses, a new game plus, and there was only an easy and normal difficulty mode for the new combat system that I could select at the start. And I asked Naoki if there would be more, but he could not reveal if there is or isn't a higher difficulty at the moment. He once again said though that we should expect the same volume of content as any other Final Fantasy game, so we might envision what this might entail for other things in the game. Some Final Fantasy games had a hard mode unlock after beating the game, so maybe that will also be the case here. Again, nothing on New Game Plus either, although yeah, we should expect some sort of endgame activities. I also asked about any post-launch content, because we did actually see a ton for Final Fantasy 15, like I was pretty surprised how well that game was supported with some free updates, but there's no plan currently to do the same for Final Fantasy 7 Remake. And the reason was that spending development resources on content like that would create some gaps, and we actually already know that they are working on part 2 of this remake project, so makes sense that they want to like immediately go and work on that so they can release that as soon as possible, and that we do not have to wait 10 years for the complete remake. Because yeah, as you likely know, what we get on April 10th is just one part of the overall Final Fantasy VII Remake that they want to release over the coming years. But yeah, I'm hyped. The game looks awesome, the combat feels great, and it's bigger than I anticipated at first. I will be all over the game when it comes out and likely do some videos before that time too. So totally subscribe for way more Final Fantasy 7 Remake content. Like the video to support the channel. And totally check out my previous video on the PlayStation 5 and some news and rumors that we got recently. For now though, I will speak to you next time and goodbye.